Welcome back. You're watching Eye in India. We're discussing the payment ecosystem in India and the road ahead. While the future may be uncertain as far as credit cards are concerned, but what about mobile wallets, Madhav?
Actually, as a bank, we have had the experience of both sides. What we realize is wallets play a very critical role in terms of stored value. In a way, it acts as a buffer against security. So a lot of people, instead of trying to directly debit into their savings account, given the kind of the uneasiness that they might have with the digital world, preferred wallets as an interim mechanism, number one. Number two, I think some of the cashbacks and some of the promotions that was brought in also gave it a fantastic fillip, and you can see the numbers that have been happening.
Yeah.
Ability to bring wallets into an interoperable mode actually makes it much more efficient and is able to build use cases which are justified at a unit economic level. So you might not want to bring the entire banking process or a payment process into it, but wallets acts as a very nice bridge, and that is able to build an ecosystem. So I still think there is enough space for all the three kinds of payments, whether it be cards. Unlike what you're stating, I don't think we are heralding the depth of
I'm not stating it. I'm merely putting forward the point of view that was expressed by the Niti Aayog CEO.
No, so I still feel, I think for me, UPI is actually going to try to go towards the bottom of the pyramid and middle. In spite of we talking about cards, our penetrations are not so huge. What UPI, IMPS have done over the last 1 year is a fantastic example of bringing more and more people into the space of digital payments, thereby creating what I love to call the digital exhaust, which in turn helps bankers and various other fintech companies to start building a credit model. And that's our UPI 2.0 combination of mandates, combination of overdrafts, actually brings them into the payment as well as a credit fold in the early stages, and makes them ripe enough for more complicated and larger exposure products like cards or a personal loans or an auto loan and etc. So in a way, it's actually driving financial inclusion in a very commercially viable and a sustainable manner. Okay,
so Amrish, what would you add to the list as we go out building this digital exhaust that Madhav just explained to us?
I actually have a few different opinions to what I just mentioned.
I'm very happy to hear that.
Starting with, I actually think India is going to completely leapfrog the credit card world. So we've got about 25 to 27 million credit cards out there. I don't think the Indian consumer is going to go to credit card. He's actually going to take credit on the digital app. He's going to take credit, or she's going to take credit on the phone. So we're actually going to leapfrog the entire credit card generation. Okay. Debit card is a completely different conversation for me. I think debit cards will continue to rise at a very fast pace. There's one concern which I have with the narrative today is, I think there are too many payment discussions that we are having, and there are too many acronyms that we are using for the common consumer to understand. So there is Aadhaar Pay, there is QR code, there is Bhim, there is Bharat Pay. And as a consumer, who's 60, 65 years old, that's too difficult for them to really understand.
65. I'm confused when I hear all of this stuff. So forget anybody who's 60 or 65.
That's exactly my point. So if the narrative was debit card allows you to play digital payments and UPI allows you to play digital payments, I think that's what the consumer wants to hear today. As the consumer goes along over the next 2 or 3 years' time, let's bring in the stories around QR, and let's bring in how you can do P2P faster. I really am worried about the fact that there is too much conversation going to the consumer. The consumer might feel very lost.
And intimidated. Yes, the consumer might feel lost and perhaps even intimidated because there's just too much of, as Amrish was pointing out, QR codes, Bharat Pay, and of course a whole bunch of other things to contend with. But Mahesh, in terms of the regulatory architecture now, and there's been a lot of conversation on the long pending reforms, for instance, for the NPCI itself. What's next now? What would you like to see happen?
So my view, Shereen, is that actually NPCI is performing quite an important role. In our current ecosystem, right? World over, the business case for launching something like an immediate payment service is not very clear, because consumers will not pay for it, right? And merchants don't want to pay for it. So who funds it? So you do need that central body who's willing to make that first plunge and create a so-called positive externality in the system. And that's what NPCI essentially has done. Right? So I believe that in the ecosystem and the country, which is India, the culture which we have, I believe you do need this one body which can set standards. Otherwise, you'll be spending a lot of time trying to figure out standards. right? That's one part of it. And the second part of it, it's NPCI is ultimately owned by the banks, right? They have, a say in...
And hence the sort of criticism on whether there should be more diversified shareholding.
Well, I would say that if you look at how the roadmap has evolved thus far, I'm not sure the criticism is really warranted because, UPI has done a tremendous job in terms of putting out something. Like I said, it's been rated. It is, in fact, I think, the country in the world which has got the most sophisticated payment infrastructure. UPI 2.0, I think, moves the ball forward. Still more to come, like we discussed, in terms of, recurring mandates, etc. But I believe that the trajectory is pretty firm. It benefits consumers, benefits merchants, benefits the ecosystem as a whole. So I don't know if that's the case for reform.
Okay.
Right? I mean, there may be a conceptual argument to be made that, yes, NPCI owns the infrastructure, they're the operator, they're also putting an app called Beam. Are they competing, in an uneven space? I think seems to be conceptual in my mind. Beam did a fantastic job during demonetization of kickstarting the entire, process.
Okay.
And right now, if you look at it, there are private sector companies who are running the show.
Right.
When it comes to, adoption of UPI.
Okay.
So I'm not sure if Beam was a dominant player with 80% market share or something, we would say, oh my God, what's going on?
Okay.
But
So you're saying that the playing field is fairly level at this point in time. Madhav, this other debate that's been going on, we talked about MDR incentivization, which the government has been discussing. In fact, the GST Council has set up an empowered committee to look at the issue of incentivizing digital transactions, and so far no conclusion, even though they've met a few times. But what is it that you would like to see from here on in terms of being able to incentivize, if at all, digital transactions?
See, the first and foremost, the fact that they have given this window till 2019 for ticket sizes of 2,000 is a very positive step. And it's at least enabling trials among the merchants. Anybody who had a genuine reason of not wanting to get in because payments through digital mechanisms was expensive is getting an opportunity to understand what it brings to the table. So I think that it's a very positive sign. Some of the other initiatives like allowing a certain amount of GST waiver for the amount of businesses that gets digitally done is a very big step because that's what is hitting at the heart of the core resistance to digital payments.
Okay.
To what extent can we bring it out into the open and make it a much more sensible measure? But I think more than the government, there is a lot more to be done by the ecosystem partners, whether it be the big tech players, whether it be the banks and the fintechs. I think unique use cases which will bring down the unit cost economics of transactions and thereby make the entire question of MDR itself irrelevant is a question which begets answering.
Okay.
Personally, I think UPI is more like a platform play with multiple options that are available. I think players in the ecosystem need to find out what makes sense. While there is a sustainable MDR on an interchange system that has been explored in terms of evolution, but I think it is yet to come out. It will evolve as we go along.
Okay, we will see further innovation and, of course, an evolution of the payments ecosystem here in India. It's been a good start, both from a regulation point of view as well as what we've seen on the ground. Will India leapfrog over credit cards? Our panel not in agreement on that one, but there is consensus that there is a lot of exciting stuff going on and the opportunity ahead looks very, very bright. Mahesh, Madhav and Amrish, appreciate you joining us here on Eye on India with your take on the payments ecosystem and where it's headed. For now, from all of us here, goodbye. Many thanks for watching.